I'm here to talk to you guys about free will and control. Because I think they're like free will is just you putting your free. I think control is. I think control is just you putting your free will on others. But that's where it gets confusing. All right, so man. So my first point essentially is humans don't have free will as they are subject to the cycle. Yes. Being subject to instincts brings the absence of free will. Now, this is not absolute. Nothing's absolute. Having free will is like a very if free will does exist, there's a very low percentage of it that comes from becoming as unhuman or unanimal as possible. Or is that exactly what we think humans are? Not animals. So maybe becoming as human as possible, as empathetic, as feeling as possible to everything. But then you think, where does the free will come in at? Now, let's look into religion. Deny your flesh. Most religions, even, I mean, that's Christian, but most religions, they say your desires are just not exactly what you're supposed to be doing, as if they were exactly what you were supposed to be doing, or if they thought that, the people that made the religions wouldn't have been made. If they thought that everybody doing their desires and whatnot, morality wouldn't have been made. But humans are naturally animals, and animals are subject to the cycle. Now, which cycle is this? Cycle life, cycle of death. But there's one big ass cycle, the universe, infinitely expanding, infinitely expanding. The thing that brings the lack of free will is certainty. Okay. Now think about it. Free will doesn't exist outside of the human mind. Control doesn't exist outside of the human mind. All of these things don't exist outside of the human mind. There are labels on things. If you ask, what are these things in just feelings and just, if you didn't have to use the words to put them into things, what would they be? Right? But you're certain about those words. So when you use them, you have to take into account the fact that these words actually mean not what you think, not the way you feel about these words. They mean something else. So in turn, you have to explain to others what these words mean to you. That is the lack of free will, as your human desire to want to be understood leads to you speaking to others in general. And then your lack of desire to not be understood leads to you not speaking to others. or the lack of desire to be understood got so hard that every time when you went to go speak to others, they didn't understand that you just stopped speaking to others. But the fundamental part is always the human desire for this understanding, right? Now, what makes humans different? What makes humans think they have free will? The thing that makes humans different is the awareness of the instincts, the ego. Now, what that really means is the consciousness, the ego, the consciousness, whatever. Ego and consciousness are not the same, but you can think of them in the same vein in this specific interpretation, speaking about free will. Because the ego leads, well, no, the ego is a created tool of the consciousness, as the consciousness is the awareness. The consciousness is the awareness to the instinct. And that is also the inherent problem. That is what makes humans different, but that is the inherent problem. As you're aware of instinct, yes, you're aware of instinct. But ego and all that actively doesn't make you aware of your instinct because it's your instinct, right? So when you don't accept that you're still an animal, when you can look at a cat and say, well, it's lazy because it's sleeping on the couch, or it doesn't have to work, it has such a nice time. The instinct well, the instinct might create the ego, possibly. And the awareness is just the consciousness. Which one? I think the instinct creates. I think the awareness of the instinct is what creates the ego. So I'm going to keep pushing on that. So, if you're aware of your instinct, that creates ego. Well, not if you're aware of your instinct, but if you're aware of instinct in general, that creates ego. If you're aware of it, if you're aware that it actually is a thing that exists, right? An automatic action within your body and every other being's body. Any being that grows, any being that has been created, anything is just instinct. When you turn the TV on, even though the TV isn't natural, it's its instinct to turn on when you press the remote. But if you press the wrong remote, it's not instinct to that remote. It's still a fun, even though it's interchangeable. That is the thing. We create interchangeable things. That is the things we create. We create things that end. Right? Not interchangeable doesn't mean end because they can swap on the stuff. But the fact that they end is what makes them interchangeable. The fact that the batteries in the controller die is what makes you able to change out the controllers. Or the fact that if you throw your controller at the wall, it's broke. That then you have to go get a new controller. If you break the TV, now you have to go get a whole new TV. And that instinct isn't the exact same, but it's still a pattern as TV reacts to remote. Or make it even better, TV reacts to power button that's already on the TV all the time. It should. If it doesn't, then it's broken, right? Now that's what happens in this world. That's the ego. It's broken. Right? So once you realize that the instinct is not happening, you realize it's either broken, then ego can break. That's where you get ego death and certain things come out of that. But that's besides the point. We're talking about free will. But ego goes into free will a lot because it's ego you. But in my opinion, the ego already exists. And that is the thing. I say the ego is created by the awareness, but the awareness is just the ability to see. You can solve the ego already exists in the inherent instincts of human. And the thing, not human, of animal, and the thing that makes humans different is the awareness of these instincts. Now, where I get confused is, why don't humans use that ability? The awareness of the instinct to then look inward and destroy their instinct. Right? Why? Because they think that the instinct is them. Is solely them, is the only thing that is them. When they are interchangeable. They think they are interchangeable. Humans think they are interchangeable. They think that just like the TV, just like the material, they are an interchangeable entity. Which they are. As the ego can be them. Some people indulge in the ego, some people don't. Now, the thing is, the indulgence is the ego. In the ego is the point. It's not the point of being here, but it's the point of the free will. When you realize that it's not free will, if this was imbued in me, if this was put into me, is it free will? When you are able to realize the instinct, then you can grasp free will.